right, YouTube, this is Mr. Mean coming at you this fine Saturday. Again, man, Alzheimer's is kicking my ass. I had to think about what day it is. I have got the awesome Jay Lasandre, owner, operator, head cheese of FeralGamesInc, of such awesome games as my personal favorite, The Black Iron, Ghost Ops, what else? Space Skits, Fantasy Gits about to come out. What else? Zombie Squad. What else? What?
The Ruin.
The Ruin, yes. Apocalyptic, with no zombies. No zombies. Which makes it a real apocalyptic game. None of this namby-pamby zombie shit. Let's see, what else? That's all I got. I got a whole shelf back there full of your shit, Jay. It's all your fault. If my shelf falls down and kills me and I die, it's all your fault. But anyway, Jay, what's going on, my brother? We haven't talked in a while.
Stuff really. Working. Always working. Writing things. Writing new things. Writing down ideas for things. At the moment, I'm working on Dungeon Gits, which is just funded 500%, which was nice. So, Dungeon Gits is going to be, it's going to be a fun game. I do enjoy writing games, and sometimes I enjoy writing some games more than other games. Dungeon Gits is a fun game. It's a D20 game, so it allows you to put an awful lot of stuff into a lot of nuance into a game. It's quite simple. It's kind of OSRE, but with extra frills, really, I suppose.
So for the meanies out there, Jay hit me up a couple of minutes ago. He messaged me through Discord, which is the preferred method of getting my attention. He sent me a private message on Discord, and he's like, "Hey, mate, what you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm setting up my painting session. I'm going to paint. Today's devoted to painting." And he goes, "Well, I thought we'd do a fireside chat and we talk about 5th edition and just gaming stuff in general." I said, "Sure, but I'm going to paint today." He didn't care. He said, "Well, when you're done setting up your paint station, let me know." And so I said, "Hey, I'm done." "Okay, well, let's record a video." So it wasn't really that bad, but we haven't talked in a while, and Jay has been a strong supporter of the channel. And now that I'm a world famous YouTube monster, I got to make time for these little guys. So I thought I'd get Jay on here and we'd commiserate about how tough life is for us bigwigs in the industry, because we're not. But I love Jay. I love picking on his cats. I like to offend Nikki, his wife, about eating her cats, because she takes it very personal, and I love it. It makes me laugh. Because I hate cats. And I told Jay, I said, "Hey, I can send you a sticker and you can stick it on the cat's ass." And he said, "It's funny because," and I said, "You stick it on the cat's ass, every time the cat shoves its ass in your face, you'll think of me." And he goes, No, John, I don't need the sticker, because normally when my cat shoves its ass in my face, I think of you." So I said, "That's love right there. That's, Jay cares." But, so we got Space Gits was successful, and I haven't had a chance to read it. I will admit, I did. It showed up in the mail the other day, and I went, "What's this? I don't remember this." But that happens, lately. A lot of Kickstarters have come through in the last couple of weeks, and I'm like, I don't remember buying this. But Space Gits, I love the art inside of it. Is that artist doing art for Fantasy Git?
The Dungeon Gits, yeah.
Or Dungeon Gits, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so he's basically the same artwork, but obviously rather than space related. It's pretty much so Space Gits kind of was created to take over from Zombie Squad, because I didn't want to redo a Zombie Squad because 2 reasons. Firstly, I want to do something a bit more different to the Zombie Squad, and plus, people got confused by the name. They always thought it was something to do with dead people in space. And so I thought, well, because the Zombie Squad actually came from the Sylvester Stallone film, Cobra.
Right.
He was part of the Zombie Squad. If you actually watch the film, they actually mention it, right? So that actually came from there. So so instead of redoing the Zombie Squad, I've done Space Gits, which is kind of the same thing. So
I'm still sad.
You start off as military. So how the game works is you have a background, you choose your background, and it's kind of a bit like Traveller with your careers and stuff. And then you go into a military prison, and you spend a few terms in the military prison, and you gain stuff from doing that, and blah blah blah. And then you become a Space Git or a member of a sort of penal squadron sent to do the dirty jobs around the universe. And Space Gits was kind of like a fun little exercise for me. I just want to do something. I want to revisit Zombie Squad, and I want to do something kind of fun. But with Space Gits coming out, I realised that probably I could do more with it, but not with space, which is where Dungeon Gits comes from, really. And I thought, well, Dungeon Gits could be a fun little game as well, but with a lot more stuff thrown into it. Because obviously it's a lot easier for me to write fantasy games and science fiction games. I know more about fantasy games and science fiction.
How many pages for Dungeon Gits? How big is it going to be?
I think it's going to be a lot bigger than Space Gits. And in fact, I'm kind of thinking that it may be too big for the size of the book. I'm wondering how to do it, but there's going to be a hell of a lot in Dungeon Gits. The whole world is going to be kind of open to random encounters and random places, and every time you play it in the world, whoever plays it will find different things, different locations. It's kind of like a hex map world, and so it's going to be a little bit different. There's going to be a lot of stuff in there. So you're looking at maybe 200, maybe 250 pages for Dungeon Gits.
Hardback or softback or both?
Well, it's only going to be a softback if you actually. I think you backed it at the hardback level, which is only a Kickstarter exclusive. You can't get them anywhere else. They'll only be available on Kickstarter, and there's only 100 available. So
I expect it fucking signed in gold filigree.
Oh, signed, yeah, they are signed. They're all signed.
I want a paw print. I want a cat paw print in there from one. So I know my victim.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because already it's kind of a fun. It's already becoming fun, and just doing character creation and everything else. It's been great fun doing Dungeon Gits.
That's awesome. And who doesn't love dungeon crawlers? Now,
exactly.
Is there going to be a 5e version of Dungeon Gits?
No.
So it's its own system. Is it the same as Space Gits?
Yeah, it's the same system as Space Gits. So basically, it's a D20 system. So it's kind of 5e anyway, really.
You're right.
There's a D20 system. You roll the dice, and you add your modifier or your skill, and you get over a target number. Things like so it's kind of OSR. So if you want to do saving throws, you roll under your stat on a D20. And it's pretty simple. There's not much to it rules-wise. Yeah, it's quite
good.
fun.
Well, like I said, the Space Gits looked amazing, at least from the art. I haven't had a chance. I brought it to work with me every day this week, and would you believe it or not, every day was freaking busy. I didn't even get a lunch this week at work. Any of the days. We were just slammed. So it sat in my book pack, and I didn't even get a chance to read it. So I was like, man. And then Friday was quiet at work, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna read Space Gits. And I reached into my backpack, and I realized that I had taken it out and put it on my desk to make room for my laptop. And so I was like, Sadaba. So it's not meant for me to read it maybe next week, but not this week. So we're gonna title this little chit chat the Fireside Chat, and one of the things that Jay wanted to talk about was the 5e phenomenon, or just 5e in general, and what we think, our opinion, because everyone knows I'm not a fan of 5e. I'll play it if someone else wants to run it. I don't want to GM it. I have no interest in it. I'm just not a fan of the system. I don't like the mechanics. That's just me. I like OSR. I like things like Space Gits, and I'm obviously I know I'm gonna love Dungeon Gits, but other game systems. I'm not even a fan of D6 systems, although I have quite a few of them. The Black Iron is and this will be a great segue into the chat. Black Iron is a D6 system that I actually, as much as I proclaim that I hate D6, I like the Black Iron D6 system. I like it's simple mechanics, it's easy, and it works. But you did a 5e version, which I'm thinking is selling pretty well, or has sold pretty well. So explain to us why you feel the need to put the torture on yourself to create two game systems. Not that you have to create 5e, but you do have to make it fit within your world. So there's some tweaking, right?
Yeah. So I mean, the thing with 5th edition is, and I think this is kind of a problem with a lot of 5th edition games, is there's various ways you can do 5e games. I mean, you could follow the whole Dungeons and Dragons route and just do Dungeons and Dragons in a different place, which is fine, right? And some people have done that, but I think they kind of don't come across as that good. And I think it's because they're D&D with a different cover slapped on it, right? And I think in order to do a 5e game, you need to be able to... Because when you've got the SRD, you can kind of do what you want with the SRD, right? I mean, if you use the text as is from the SID, so you basically, if you copy and paste it, you have to put an OGL at the end of it, right? They can't copyright a mechanic, so you can do as many D20 games as you want. If you use any of their text, then you have to use the OGL, right?
Right.
If you don't want to use the text, then you don't have to put an OGL on it. But even their text is quite well done in a sense where I actually quite like the 5e mechanic, not because it's particularly good, but because it works and it's solid, right? It actually does work. No. And it's also very adaptable. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong with making 5e based games. I was actually talking to somebody the other day about it, and I was saying there's various types of D&D players. And I think there's D&D players out there who are very much, they love 5e, they won't play anything else, and that's all they'll do, right? And then you've got a group of 5e players who love 5e, but they kind of get a bit bored doing the same thing all the time, and they will try some other things out because they're 5e, right? And then you've got the 5e players who like 5e, but they moan about 5e because there's problems with it, or they think there's problems with it because they're getting bored with it, but they don't want to learn other rules, right? So for them people, you need to make 5e games. And I think the important thing is not to make, when you're using 5e, is not to make a 5e game, right? Now that sounds a bit odd, but if you look at any of my games I've done, either be it Legal Seekers, Ghost Ops, Ruin, Black Iron, right? All of those games are 5e, but they're not exactly 5e.
Right. Yeah. It's a flavor.
Yeah, it's mechanics, right? The mechanics are the same, and that's where the difference lies. I mean, I don't use all the stats, right? So, for example, Ghost Ops doesn't use... It uses strength, it uses dex, it uses intelligence, it uses constitution, but it calls it health, right? And it doesn't use wisdom, it doesn't use charisma. Yeah. Because wisdom and charisma aren't really words you use in modern day.
Right.
So, for example, in Ghost Ops, they use tactics for wisdom, and they use command for charisma, right?
Which makes more sense.
Yeah, exactly. And then in the Ruin, you've got instinct instead of wisdom. Yeah. And you've got I think it's personality instead of charisma, right? So it just brings it to the modern day. People who just get them stats and then just chunk it into a modern day setting, they're kind of doing themselves a disservice. And it's almost like they're scared to change it. Yeah. But why can't you change it? You can do what you want with it, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what makes it more enticing to me. Not because it's 5e and it's going to sell, but because I can do what I want with it. And people who play 5e can play it without having to learn new rules.
Right. And that's the biggest door to any role playing is learning a new set of rules. People they want comfort, they want ease, you know.
People don't have the time to sit around reading rule books these days. They're working full time. They've got kids, they've got this, they've got whatever. Exactly right. They don't want to sit down and read a whole rule book. I mean, some people love reading rule books, but
some of us do it for a professional hobby.
Exactly. Right. But the thing is, it's like, if you look at games like The Ruin, for example, which is a 5e game, it's not just 5e, it's also available as a percentile game, but if you picked up a 5e game, there's only 10 levels in it. You don't get anything above 10th level, right? It's a milestone
experience system.
Yeah.
Which I do like that.
Yeah,
that's what I use that in my Pathfinder games because I don't keeping track, and it keeps people from I got to kill monsters in order to level up. When you do the milestone, I've just seen in my groups, whether it be D&D or Pathfinder or any other game that uses a milestone versus XP, I've found that players are more apt to role play. They're more apt to figure things out instead of just start shooting or start hacking. There's always the one or two players that are going to do that because that's their style of play, and there's nothing wrong with that if it fits into your group. But I do like the fact that like the Ruin with its milestone system, the players are more encouraged to we can't just go around and shoot everything because who knows what's around the next corner, and ammunition's in limited supply. So let's can we talk to these scavengers? And if it digresses to violence, then so be it. But maybe we can get through here, or maybe do a bit of trade and get something that's been, it forces the player. It doesn't force the players. That's a strong word. It gives the players the option to actually role play. And I've found that players that like to role play will do it more. And even players that don't, your hack and slashers are more apt to stop for a second and think about options as opposed to just start swinging their sword or pulling their trigger finger. So I like the milestone system, and and that I think that comes from D&D. I think they're one of the first ones to introduce it. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure if how they did it in the past and stuff, but I think the early editions used to kind of use a bit of a milestone sort of situation. But I mean, if you look at, if I play D&D, right, the three things I don't like about D&D generally, right, are armor class, right, death saves, and progression, right, how powerful the players become. So, for example, armor class is fixed, right. In the Ruin, people have an armor class like they would have in a normal D&D game, but as their armor takes damage, as you can use your armor to take the full force of a critical hit, right? So instead of taking it upon yourself, your armor takes it. And if your armor takes it, it becomes more broken. And as your armor becomes more broken, your armor class drops. Right? And that's one way of fixing it, right?
Yeah.
That's one way of fixing armor class.
A blade of armor, basically.
You're going to have to go somewhere and get your armor fixed.
Right.
And the more damage you take, the more armor gets broken. And eventually your armor will be useless.
Right.
That's something that I think fixes that problem for AC for me, right? Yeah. In Ghost Ops, death saves, for example, exist in Ghost Ops, but if you fail a death save, it goes up. So instead of having to get a 10, you have to get a 12.
Right. And then after 12...
Every time you fail, it goes up again.
Yeah.
So it becomes harder to
and it should, right? You're closer to death's door. Why should it stay static as a 10 or a better, So, yeah, I like that, too. I mean...
Yeah, and these things aren't D&D basic, but they're things that people who play D&D a lot will easily pick up on.
Yeah.
They're not something they have to learn.
Right.
It is just a slight change to how they do things, but them slight changes improve the game, I think, for me.
Right.
And make it more, not even more realistic, maybe more gritty, I guess. And if you're playing a military game, or you're playing a post-apocalyptic game, you want them games to be more gritty or more realistic. Right. And I think these slight changes 5th edition as people know it when they pick up their player's handbook and play their whatever they're playing, and they and it turns it into a whole new game. Now I wouldn't make a 5e game if I couldn't adapt it. If it was just you have to do the rules as written, I wouldn't bother because I don't like the rules as written.
Right.
So every game I write for the game for 5th edition is different than 5th edition.
Right.
But people who play 5th edition know it.
Yeah, I think one of the and when you explain it to me that way, and for everybody listening at home, we talked about this before we started recording, and I think you really hit the nail on the head for my understanding of taking it and making it, adapting it to fit your world, not trying to put a cookie cutter, on something that's not made to be cookie cut. And I think another good example of that is one that I just picked up was Bunkers and Badasses. Read the rules and you can see the 5th edition inspiration all over it, but the mechanics are tweaked just enough where you go, is this 5th edition? And well, gosh, this makes a lot of sense, and depending on your success level, you do more damage. You get to roll better dice, for your guns and stuff in Bunkers and Badasses. And, I'm reading it and I'm really liking what I'm reading for Bunkers and Badasses. And there, it's Nerd Games, I think it is. Nerdvana is the name of the company. I don't know what else they've done as far as RPG games. They've done a card game which is also based off of Borderlands, but I think this is a company that just sprang up overnight, and I don't know basically anything about them. Their website's kind of sparse.
I mean, this is what makes it interesting is because you are basically playing a D&D 5th edition game.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel like D&D.
No, exactly. But it is the same sort of mechanic pretty much. Yeah. And this is what I mean by it. I mean, making a 5th edition game doesn't have to be Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
Because you have control over the SRD. You don't have to use any of the text. You can just use mechanic.
Yeah.
And the thing is with it is that in order to make a good 5th edition game, I think, is to adapt it. You can't just take it straight from one thing, stick it in another thing, and just hope for the best. Because that's where it all falls down. And I think too many people, I don't know whether it's fear or laziness, I don't know what it is, but if it's fear, people are scared to change it too much because people might not like it, or they just can't be bothered and just want to slap it in and make some money, right? Yeah. And that's not, neither of those two things are valid, really. You need to be able to adapt it, and it's so easily adaptable, and that's what makes it so good. Is that even though people may hate 5th edition, you shouldn't give up on every 5th edition game, because often they're different and they change for things that you may not like. Because a lot of people don't like it. I mean, I did a lot of research before I did Varun and I did any 5th edition games, because I wanted to see what people didn't like about 5th edition. And most people didn't like going past 10th level.
Right.
Or 12th level.
Well, it breaks down. The mechanic, exactly. The way the mechanics are written, the raw rules as written, it breaks down after 10th level, So exactly. That's a funny thing you would say, that people are scared, because I remember, just a scant, 20 years ago when we had 3.5, right? 3.0, and then they quickly upgraded to 3.5. Look how many companies came out of the woodwork, and that you could find everything in 3.5. We had Spycraft, if you wanted that. We had Judge Dredd. We had all these different genres, all using 3.5, and some of them were amazing. Some of them didn't last. They were flash in a pan, but Spycraft's still around. D20 Modern is on Kickstarter right now. They're redoing it. The same people that did it, they're changing it to, I forgot, Modern Day Heroes, I think is what they're calling it. But it's D20 Modern, and D20 Modern, I was not personally a fan, because I don't like modern settings for the most part. I either like, sci-fi or fantasy, or I like dark modern, But I thought, wow, how innovative is that? And now that you say it, I'm drawing this comparison between 3.5, which there was a billion different game genres out there, and they all used the 3.5 mechanic, and most of them worked, and then so now we have 5.0, which is just an updated version of 3.5, to be honest. There's not a whole lot changed, but yet, like you said, people are kind of scared to change, and I don't understand why. And we can blame part of that as, we touched on this before, a little bit more of a more victim mentality that the public has in general. Not to say that everybody does, but I just feel that some people, we want to keep everything politically correct, and I think in that 5e category, I think that's kind of where people they're safe in that lane, you know what I mean? So they don't want to modify the rules because they're afraid people won't buy it, because now it's completely different. Whereas we didn't have that stigma in 3.5. There were so many crappy games made in 3.5, and I've said this before in the past, there are no bad games. There's only bad game masters. There's very few, and I've just contradicted myself. There are bad games, that's for sure, but they're very few and far between. You can read a game and get something out of it, whether you didn't like the mechanics, but the art was cool. You can steal that art and use it in your setting, for your group of players. If there's a mechanic you like, you can steal that mechanic and make it work, there's something redeeming about everything, because no matter how you look at it, there's no factory printing out role-playing games. These are all written by individual people or a group of people in certain cases, like WotC and Pathfinder, which, Pathfinder, Paizo farms out a lot of work to independent contractors, and then they just say that it's written under the Paizo umbrella because they have a contract. But it's cheaper for them to do that than to have a writer on staff, 24. I mean, you couldn't afford to have a writer on staff 24, so 40-hour work week, right? Yeah, I mean, you'd go bankrupt trying to pay their salary, because you can't, right? And you're one of the most prolific writers I know. You've got you're in the middle of one Kickstarter, and I guarantee you, and everybody, I know Jay pretty well, but I guarantee if we go look on his hard drive, there's about 3 or 4 outlines for different games that he's working on right now. I know there is. I know you. So, I mean, that's a great thing, but you've taken this writing for 5th edition into a different direction than most other publishers or self-publishers or artists, however you'd like to be identified. I personally identify as a Ford F-150, but that's just me. I saw a sticker the other day on a Prius that said I identify as a Ford F-150, and I almost wrecked my car. I was laughing so hard. But enough of that. We won't talk about that kind of stuff. But I think you're in this lane kind of all by yourself. I don't know anybody else in the industry that is doing what you've come out with, like 3 or 4 different games now that are already under the 5e umbrella, but they're so different. What other popular 5th edition apocalyptic game is out there?
I don't know. I don't.
Yeah.
There's maybe one, or I don't know.
What
I don't
other
know.
super dark 5th edition role playing game is set in a dark fantasy?
Um, I mean, there's a couple, but they haven't done very well. I don't think. I don't know.
Exactly. I mean, and I got more books than most game stores, and I can't tell you one. That doesn't mean I know them all, obviously, but I mean, I'm just saying.
Because I think it's because they don't change enough to make it.
That's what I'm saying. You're in this lane by yourself, and I think if other publishers and designers start thinking outside the box, as corny as that sounds, the cliche is corny as hell, but it makes sense. You're looking at it from like, okay, well, I don't like charisma, I'm going to use command. It's the same thing. It does the same thing. It just fits in with the genre and the story vehicle that you're going with, and it makes sense. And all you did was change a word. It's still the same mechanic. It still does the same thing. You're just calling it command instead of charisma, because charisma is archaic. Nobody uses charisma. You know, maybe your model on the runway, you know, or the super duper actor in Hollywood, you know, but nobody uses that in a modern day setting. You would use command. You know, that guy is authoritative. Oh, he must have a high command stat. They don't say, oh, he has a high charisma. You know what I mean? You're making it your, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a weird thing about Dungeons and Dragons, because I think since Watsy's taken it over, it's kind of. I was thinking about this the other day, you know, and I was looking at D&D, and I was thinking they've really kind of screwed it up. I mean, I've got a lot of second edition D&D stuff, and I kind of like second edition. I know people don't like FACO and stuff or whatever, but I do like second edition, because at the end of the day, right? You look at what Watsy's done. They've released campaign settings. They've released Eberron.
Phenomenal setting.
They've released a few other things, but never released anything else. Yeah. They've released Eberron. You look at third edition, Eberron, there's a ton of splat books for it. You look at second edition Dark Sun, or Planescape, or Ravenloft, all of them have got tons of stuff.
Dragonlance.
I've got Ravenloft second edition stuff. I've got a whole shelf of stuff for Ravenloft. I've got the Dragonlance box set. I've got the Dragonlance Adventures books. I've got all of those things. I've got the Greyhawk boxes. I've got Dark Sun boxes.
That area right there, those books right there, that's all Eberron. And that's not even the soft cover. That's just hard covers that they came out with for Eberron for 3.5. Yeah. Where's the Eberron love in 5th edition? And that's all WotC material, so why can't they just reproduce it and slap the 5e sticker on it? It would sell like hotcakes. People have been asking for Dragonlance for 5 years now for 5th edition. And why don't they? Because they don't want to release it. They don't want to expand. They want this little bubble, and they want to keep everybody in this bubble. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, right? Because let's look at, you go to your local game store, 97% of every game that's being played at your game store is what? Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, I mean, Pathfinder is the next biggest game, and some might argue Savage Worlds is. You don't see anybody playing those games in the game store 9 out of 10 times. Every once in a while you might see one. You know, I can't even. It took me 2 years to get a Pathfinder group because everybody wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, and I didn't want to run D&D. I wanted to run Pathfinder.
Exactly.
I mean, it took me 2 years.
I mean, why haven't they? Why don't they do anything? I mean, they basically release a load of adventures or campaign modules, right? None of which have been rated very highly. Yeah. And they're all kind of set around Forgotten Realms anyway, particularly. Right. They've released the Ravenloft book and a deck of cards, and that's it. That's 2 years ago. Yeah. They've not done anything since.
And people are begging. People are begging for more. You know,
want given to them, and they don't have it. And it kind of, I don't know whether it's because they just want people to continue buying stuff and releasing stuff. I mean, why release campaign modules or campaign settings like Eberron or Ravenloft and then do nothing for them? It just seems weird to me. Do you know what I mean? Whereas in second edition and even third edition and maybe even fourth edition, really, if you look at things like Dark Sun and stuff, they release a ton of stuff for these campaign settings. And they don't seem to be doing any of that anymore. And I think that's kind of a weird thing to be doing.
And it makes me wonder, you know, and what's going on with the brand? Where is their marketing department? And, you know, are they looking at some sort of statistical feedback that says the majority of people are happy with the Forgotten Realms? But every forum I go to, every Discord I look at, where those things are being talked about, it's a ton of people. Even on Foundry, in the Foundry Discord for the D&D section, there's people going, "Has anybody done anything with Ravenloft?" No. Has anybody done anything? No. Dragonlance? No. It's like you have all these IPs that you own the rights to, and nothing. And I don't understand, what the holdup is. And they've gone to releasing less books. Like in 3.5, now we'll admit 3.5 was a glut. We were not in any kind of recession. The world had money. Paper wasn't an issue. And we've got some different challenges, 20 years later now. But still, Paizo's throwing out a book every 2 or 3 months. Look at that shelf right there. Right there. That's all Paizo hardbacks.
I mean, Paizo have used their own stirring setting, right, which is good, right? And then they release these splat books to each area, which are quite widely different. And then they release a what's it called, a adventure path for it straight afterwards. So not even you got the setting book. I think the latest one was that kind of African jungle one.
Mwambi, yeah.
And then they release a adventure path for it.
Right.
And so straight away you've got the setting book, and then within minutes you've got the whole adventure path.
And then after they release the adventure path, they turn around and re-release it with all the edits and the stuff that they missed, and they put it in a hardback.
Yeah.
They just did a successful Kickstarter. What was it, last year? They did a Kickstarter for Kingmaker, the first edition Pathfinder, and they released it in a hardback, and I think they're releasing it for second edition Pathfinder, if I remember correctly, and it sold like hotcakes. And now they're getting heat for releasing Abomination Vaults for 5th edition. Oh, they're going out of business. They're hurting for money. No, they're jumping on the 5th edition cash cow because it's another stream of revenue. Why? They're a business. They're in it to make. I get so tired of hearing people say, "Oh, well, WotC released another book. It's just a cash cow." Or Palladium Books, they're very prolific in spitting out, world books for their Rifts line or whatever, and people be, "Oh, I gotta buy all these." No, nobody's forcing your arm to buy them. You can play D&D with the 3 core books and never buy another book. Or say you want Eberron, you can buy the Eberron book. You don't have to buy anything. But they bitch it and here we are. We're begging 5th edition to come out with more stuff for either Eberron or Dragonlance or Dark Suns. And here's Pathfinder, who's releasing a book every 2 to 3 months, and they're getting crap because they're releasing too many books.
Yeah.
So you're never happy. What do you want? Where's the fine medium? But yet the Pathfinder books keep selling like hotcakes. I mean, Jesus Christ, look at my library. I've got every...
Yeah, they're doing it right, though. They're doing it correctly.
Yeah. They're giving the public what they want, and then the choice is yours whether or not to buy it.
Many people sit down and create their own adventures for games anymore. Do you know what I mean? They ain't got the time for that. They want to be able to pick up an adventure path, read it, run it.
Up until last year, I can honestly say, and I've been game mastering since the beginning. Yeah, I have 30 years of game mastering under my belt. I've never run a pre-made adventure until last year. Last year was the first year I ever did it. I always wrote my own stuff, always did my own thing, and then I have an autistic child, I have a wife, I have a full-time job, I'm 50, I'll be 55 this year. I'm tired. I don't have time. I don't have that creative juices to put into that. And then, of course, I run a YouTube channel that takes up a lot of time. So where the hours have got to come from somewhere. So is it easier to just pull an adventure path off the shelf and start going, oh, okay. I tell you, one of the things I love the most about companies now is they're putting, and this is becoming more and more of a trend, they're putting a starting adventure. Like for Black Iron, you put the starting adventure in there, and it's a simple adventure. Go fetch a anvil from a town that's out just outside of the wall. That's all you got to do, and of course you throw. And we only played the first part of that adventure where they got to the anvil. They didn't even descend. I don't want to spoil anything. They didn't go any further than that. They just got the anvil, and my players were like, Jesus Christ, this world's horrible. I love it. I had, we were for those that don't know, some of the meanies played in the game, but we were testing out. Dab is one of the Foundry authors that creates Foundry rule sets, and Jay reached out to him to create a Foundry rule set for the Black Iron, which I play tested. So I think maybe me and you are the only two people that have that rule set installed on their computer. And it worked out pretty good. We found a few tweaks, and Dab has since updated it. And I'm ready to run the second part of that adventure. It's just scheduling is always a pain in the ass. But the fact that you had that starting adventure in there, and then you released this, I think the second part of it for free, right?
Yeah.
Or is it?
Yeah. But it was sent to free for all the backers. All the backers got it for free.
All the backers got it for free. Yeah. So I've got it. And I'm telling you, as a busy person, who works 40 hours a week, has, children and has other responsibilities, having that in the back of the core book was amazing, and just more and more companies need to start doing that, because it gives, not only does it set the tone, you can read the book, you can read the fluff, you can get a feel and think you know the world, but until you run an adventure in it, you don't know. And so having that adventure in there and describing, the things that the players are going to run into. I mean, they got a blizzard on their way. Their visibility was cut from 30 feet to 15 feet. So everybody with a bow was useless, And these guys are like, Jesus. And, for those that don't know, the Black Iron is a very dark fantasy world. And it's a struggle just to live day to day. You think Warhammer Fantasy is dark? It's gotten Warhammer Fantasy is the Barney show compared to the Black Iron. It's dark, man, and I love it. It is my favorite game that you've written. Besides, I have a special place in my heart for Zombie Squad, because that's how we got to know each other. But and I often it's up there on the shelf in the little Jay shrine. There's all the Jay's books up in the one corner right there. But that starting adventure is so important because it sets the tone, it sets the flavor, and it gives you as a GM focus, which you can read all the fluff and the lore in the world, but if you don't have focus, you just got a bunch of words. And so I like that starting adventure, and it gives me, I'm excited. I'm reading the book, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and the art is amazing, and everything is cool, and I like the mechanics. And then I get to the end of the book, and there's no adventure for me to read to kind of tie it all together. You know what I mean? The adventure, because it's telling me, even if the author paid somebody else to write the adventure, that person read the book, or I would hope read the book, or they just have a really good understanding of it, and then they wrote an adventure that sets the tone, the speed, the flavor of that world for me. And that's what the starting adventure in the Black Iron did. It really sent home that this is a bleak place, man, and you're doing all you can do to survive, and you get a couple, scripts, or I forgot what they call the currency in Black Iron. Is it scripts?
It's a kind of a bar coin, isn't it? The chits, yeah,
or something like that, yeah. Because physical currencies, they don't. The world's in hell in a handbasket, and there's no mints running around, and there's nobody making coin. So if you find coin, you can actually sell it to get. It's a very weird economy, but it works for the game. But just having that starting adventure for something as simple as going and finding an anvil. It was dark, and it was fun, and it set the tone, and everybody. I mean, when we walked away from that initial session, everyone was like, man, what a great setting, Everybody, I had 5 players. They all had a copy of the book. One of them went out and bought it, just to play in that game, So and they were like, oh, I'm going to run this for my players. I'm like, yes, please do. And come back here and tell us what it did. And if you have questions, the writer, the designer of the game is in the Discord. Shoot him a message,
Yeah.
So I just think you have all this, shall we say, wiggle room in 5e, and like you said, you're the only person. If someone in the listening audience knows of another company that's doing what Jay does, please put the notes down in the comment. I want to know, because I want to check out their products, because I'm not a fan of 5th edition. You've offered me 5th edition books. I'm like, nah, it's okay. I don't have any interest in them because I'm never going to look at them. Because I don't want to. And it's not that it's a bad game system. It's a fine game. I just don't have any interest in. I don't like the mechanics. It's not for me. Black Iron to me, if you stop producing Black Iron and only make, or D6, and you only make it in 5th edition, I won't buy one because I don't have a need, because I have the core book and I have the compendium that you did to it, the little update. That's all I need. Now, do I want to see more books? Hell yeah. I want to see the dwarf, stuff. I want to see, the separate book on maybe like where the elves went. I think, that would be awesome to, see it from the elves' perspective and why they were such douchebags. Yeah. But is that a book that would sell? I don't know,
Right, a Black Iron. There's a lot of development going on with the Black Iron for me at the moment. So the plan is at the moment with the Black Iron is I'm going to be releasing kind of a second edition, and what that will be is that the D6 version won't change much. It will change in a few things, but that aren't going to affect anything. So there'll be changes to how characters experience stuff and level up, even though we don't level up, but gain,
progression
new stuff.
Yeah.
Improve, basically. There'll be changes to that. There's going to be a few changes to some of the content of the book will change slightly. Some more monsters put in there. The beasts will get bigger. But so the D6 version won't change much. The 5th edition version, at the moment, it's just a setting book. So you've got no rules in there. But the new version will have all the rules. And there'll be a lot of changes to those as well. So it'll be a new rule book. So you won't need a player's handbook. You won't need a DM's guide. You won't need any of that stuff, which is what you need.
It'll all be in the core book, right?
It'll be a complete role-playing game, the 5th edition one.
Okay, so now that I might be interested in.
Yeah, and it'll change a few things. It'll be a little bit dark. Well, it'll have a lot darker, I presume. And
a lot darker. How can you get any more darker, Jay? Jesus.
And then I'm also going to be releasing a percentile version as well.
What?
Yeah.
This is the first I've heard of this.
So basically, over the last 6 months, I've been developing my own percentile system. And the reason being is I'm kind of sick of seeing everybody using either Warhammer percentile system or the Chaosium percentile system, which is what most percentile systems are based on these days.
Totally, yeah.
Right. And I get a bit bored of that. So what I've done is I've developed a percentile system which allows the players to determine how they use their numbers, if you like. Right. It's not that. It's very fluid. So you've not got a percentile number. You're not got, I've got a 35% chance in hitting things, right? It doesn't work like that. It's how you use your stats that will determine what your percentage number is. And it does it in a very quick and easy way. So you may have, the martial skill, and you may have the strength stat, or you could use your martial skill with your intelligence stat for like tacticals, sort of military tactics, or you could use it with your personality, so you could actually use it to threaten people.
Right.
So everything changes, and basically the whole thing revolves around what I call the crescent system. And there's no skills. Everything is determined by how you use your attributes. And this gives you your potential number. And it's very
I'm liking how this sounds. Although I gotta say, and I've said this many times, I'm not a fan of D6 systems, but I like the Black Iron. I like that system. I really do. But it does need, it needs some. Well, I shouldn't say mechanics. I think the mechanics are fine, but I think character creation. There's some minor tweaks that are needed, like how many spells do you start with as a wizard?
Yeah, the system's going to be tweaked a bit as well.
So that was when we were making characters. That was the only thing where we had we couldn't figure that out, and I kept looking in the book, and you get the first. It kind of sounds like you get the first circle, and then you move from there. But how do you go up to the second circle? What do you get when So I know you're going to tweak it, and I'm not worried about it at all. I mean, it does work as it is, and it takes just a little bit of effort to tweak those things. But it's such not that this became a session of talking about the Black Iron, but it is one of my favorite games. I mean, I really like the setting.
It's one of mine as well, and that's why I kind of want to improve upon it and make it better and stuff. So. So a lot of things will be tweaked. Character creation will be tweaked. I'm not happy with the magic system, and this is one of the things about being a creator is that when you look back on things, you think, "Well, I could have done that better.
Yeah.
Could have done that better."
Well, it's never done.
This is why second editions work and exist in the first place. Well, third editions, fifth editions, and 12th editions and stuff, right? So how it'll work is that everybody who bought the original will get it as a free upgrade anyway. So you'll get it as a free PDF. So you won't have to
physically buy it.
but you won't have a buy it. It'll just be
Right.
an upgrade to the actual rule. So everything will be
coming from that side. So let's talk about that because I often like to expose Kickstarter. I've been on this rant lately about how I'm not going to support Kickstarter, but yet I still am.
yeah.
You can bitch and moan about it all you want, but it's the only way you're going to get cool games at the point, because some of these games will never see the light of day outside of Kickstarter. Does Kickstarter allow you to keep track of like all the people? Like my case, I bought the Black Iron D6. Do you have a database or something that you can pull up via Kickstarter to say, yes, Mr. Mean bought a copy, but Toby over here did not. But Toby's trying to say he bought it. Is it go by email, or is there just a database where you keep track of it? Or
how it works? Well, yeah, it does keep track of who bought what and stuff and who backed what. But how I do it is it's done on drive-through for me. So how you do it is you basically you download. I can copy and paste all the backers into drive-through as a folder, right? As a group, they call it a group. So, for example, with a Black Iron, I have a folder for the D6 group, and I have a folder for the 5th edition group, right? So everybody who basically backed it, if I was going to do it that way, everybody in that group, as soon as I have a new PDF, I put the PDF up, and I say send it to free complimentary copy to these people, and it'll say what group. And you click the group. And everybody in that group gets a free copy sent to them. It's as simple as that. And it's done through drive-through RPG. So that's what will happen is that anybody who backed the D6 version, anybody who backed the 5th edition version will get their free copy sent to them directly. And anybody who bought it on drive-through RPG will also get it as an update to the current thing.
Oh, okay.
Right?
So you're gonna canvas the whole body of people that got it. That's awesome. That's very nice.
Yeah. And when I do the Kickstarter for the settings book, which is going to be coming at some point, anybody who backs the PDF of a setting will get the free PDF of the 2nd edition.
Right, yeah.
So even if you back it, you'll still get a free PDF of the core rulebook. You won't have to buy that.
But we're hoping people will want to buy the physical copy, right?
Oh, yeah, they can do, yeah. And I'm hoping that if we have enough backers, I'll be able to afford to do proper printing copies. But at the moment, that's all over the place. And globally, it's a
shitstorm out there. Yeah, I mean, just from the shipping all the way to the manufacturing and paper and everybody screaming and.
Yeah, it's rubbish at the moment. So it's not very good.
Yeah.
But
I can't. Well, I wanted to talk about that the shipping thing because I got my invoice Wednesday from Paizo. I'm on their subscription service, right, for Pathfinder 2nd edition. And what that gets me is I buy the physical copy of the book, and included in that, like say $49.99 or $59.99, included in that is the PDF. I get it for free because I'm on that Paizo subscription. That's the only way. So if you don't think that, I can go to Paizo and I can buy Bestiary 3 and I'm going to get the PDF. No, you just get the physical book. You don't get the PDF unless you add the PDF to your cart. But if you're on the subscription service and they charge your credit card every so many months when a new book comes out, you get the PDF. So that whole shelf over there, I have all those PDFs because I was on the subscription service. So I got both. So I got my email on Wednesday that the Necromancy book is coming out. And they said, well, we're not going to charge you until it ships, and you'll get the PDF once the book leaves their warehouse. The PDF is made available for me to download, so I can get it a couple days early and look at it and kind of see what I'm going to physically get, which is really nice. And I think that's a great. So I think every company should give the PDF away when you buy the physical book. They don't do it. Watsy, I'm looking at you. But what really got my goat, and I canceled. I called them up and I talked to somebody. And I got a recording that said, I didn't actually talk to somebody. I got a recording that said, due to COVID, which I'm so sick of COVID excuses now. Every company in the world is using a COVID excuse. I'm like, we are back to normal now. Get your ass to work. Get in the office. Go to work. Wear a mask if you got to wear it. But come on. Everybody should be vaccinated. Get to work. But that's beside the point. I sent them an email. I said, the shipping for this book is $20. It's a $50 book. It's almost half the cost of the book and shipping alone. So this $50 book is going to cost me $83 all said and done. Because on top of the $20 in shipping, they're charging me $5 in shipping and handling fees. So I'm like, no, I'll buy it from Amazon. I'll save a couple of bucks on the price of Amazon, and I'll get it in 2 days as opposed to waiting for them 3 to 5 weeks. 3 to 5 weeks.
Yeah.
From the date they say they send me the invoice, right? Now, they've already charged my credit card. Luckily, I caught it in time, and I said, no, I am not paying, almost $30 in shipping for a $50 book. That's ridiculous. If it was $15, I'd have been okay. And this is the first time I noticed this discrepancy in shipping. So the last time they shipped, they forgot to ship me the Realms of Sorcery or whatever it was, their sorcery book. So they added it with the Gears and Guns book. So my shipping was a little bit cheaper because they combined it, and so I didn't pay double. And so I don't really know. Maybe they were doing it and I just didn't catch it. But I'm like, $80, almost $90 for a single hardback book that's only 200 and something pages. No, I'm not paying that. So I canceled my subscription, and I'm really sad about this. But it's ridiculous to pay half the cost in shipping for a freaking book. That's ridiculous. So Paizo's just forcing me to go to Amazon or forcing me to pirate the book. Because
it is ridiculous. I mean, I contacted Paizo because I looked at the subscription service and I thought, that's quite good. And so I went to, I contacted them and said, look, is this, do you have distribution in the UK or anything, right? Because to get it posted from America would just be ridiculous. I mean, you think $20 a lot, it would cost me probably the same price as a book.
Right. Oh, I know. I'm very well aware.
So I'll be paying, double the cost. And they said, oh, no, we don't ship from the UK. So, they've lost a customer there, and it wouldn't be that hard to set up, that up with someone. Do you know what I mean?
And here's the thing. Stephen Turner has his own company. He's an accountant by trade, but he also has a distribution service. He does shipping. That's part of his business.
I think even he's finding that shipping is now trebled, isn't it, in cost?
Yeah. But he's still... He sent me fucking 8 pounds worth of books, and I got it in less than a week.
Yeah.
Paizo's here in the U, and it cost him next to nothing. Paizo's here in the U.S., and it costs. They want to. I don't understand how these. It's just businesses, I think, taking unfair advantage of the market and saying, "Well, everybody else is doing it. I'm gonna." And I was extremely disappointed in Paizo for that. I don't care that they're selling APs for 5th edition. More power to them. Jump on the 5e bandwagon. If you can make money, and maybe that'll lower my shipping for next month's subscription, right? So I don't think we'll see that happen because I think, like any other business in America, it's corporate greed. These guys, they're making more money, so they're not going to pass. They're not going to pass that convenience down to us, which is a shame. I mean, but look at this. How long have people been screaming for PDFs on WotC's site?
Exactly.
And WotC won't do it. I mean, I think they just started doing it. You can get some of the older.
I don't tend to buy D&D books at all. I don't. Well, not 5th edition books. I've got the 3 core books, and that's all I ever need. I don't buy 2nd edition books or buy anything.
Kobold Press is a company that continues to impress me with their 5th edition. That's Wolfgang Bauer. And I'm really impressed with their customer service. I'm impressed with they stick to their gun. I begged them. I sent an email directly to Wolfgang saying, "Hey, are you going to do your Midgard setting in Pathfinder 2nd edition? It's begging to be converted. It's so perfect for it, And he said no. And blatantly honest, we make enough money. And here's the what that caught me. Enough money. Not more money. Enough money off of 5th edition that we don't see the need or the effort or the extra work to put into producing for Pathfinder 2nd edition. Yeah. Now, they could make more money if they produce stuff for 2nd edition. There's no doubt, right? Because you've already got the material. Now you're just converting the mechanics. It's just more money. It's basically a license to print money at this point. And he said, no, we're making enough off of 5th edition. So that being said, everything that I buy from Kobold Press, I can convert to Pathfinder. It's not hard.
No, it's the same system pretty much, isn't it?
Pretty much. Well, yeah, I mean, you have multi-actions in Pathfinder. In D&D, you don't. But it's easy enough to convert it. And I bought it came with a huge map pack. It came with like 12 maps in it. And then it came with this like mega dungeon as a book. the Red Hill or something. I don't remember what it's called, but it's Kobold Press. And I was talking to them at Con of the North, or whatever the con was that I went to in Madison, Wisconsin, back in October of last year. And the lady who is one of the representatives of Kobold Press, Wolfgang, wasn't there, but she told me that the maps for that setting, they can't keep them in stock. They're selling out like hotcakes. The books they have, but the maps, because everybody's using the maps, because maps are so expensive. They're on dry, wet erase, heavy cardboard, and they fold up real nice, just like Paizo was doing with their maps. And Paizo's maps sell like hotcakes, and they're like, we can't keep these maps in stock because everybody's buying them for every other game that they're using because they're generic enough. They're not 5e. There's no such thing as a 5e map. So they're and as a map pack is selling for like $30. You got like I think 10 or 12 maps in it. It's amazing. And I thought, I bought that as soon as I saw it because I said, I'm going to run Pathfinder in that. Or I could run the Black Iron in it because it's generic. The adventure, to be honest, is a 5e adventure, but it's generic enough that I can run it in any setting. I don't need the mechanic part of the adventure. I just need the written word, which is what I have. And and then I don't know if you can see them on the shelf there, but up there is the oh no, it's over. You can't see it. It's in my bookcase on this side. But there's the Warlock books, which are their Patreon thing that every year they take everything that they've released for that year that they feel is really good, and they condense it and put it in a Warlock book. And it's a little hardback tome, digest size, and it's fantastic, and it's so many cool ideas. And even though it's 5th edition, it's easily converted to whatever fantasy, I could chivalry and sorcery because it's just words. I can make the stats myself. I can find something that works in chivalry or the Black Iron or whatever, or Dungeon Gets, hopefully, when I get my greedy paws on that. Review copy.
But I think it's a weird. The whole thing's a weird situation, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, I've spoke to Wolfgang a couple of times in the past, and he does what he does, doesn't he? And Kobold Press are pretty good at what they do. I mean, I don't own any of their stuff because I generally don't.
Every Kickstarter has been pretty much on time. It's rock solid. Empire of the Ghouls. I don't know if you've looked at that adventure path or that adventure book. It's it's this thick. It's a hardback adventure, and it's freaking amazing. And it's all, who doesn't like zombies and vampires and ghouls? Because that's what it is. Because in the Midgard setting, the nation underground, like D&D has the Underdark. Kobold Press in their setting, their Midgard setting, has the Ghoul Nation, which is underground, and then they've kind of taken over a part of the world.
Do you need the mid-world books in order to run the adventure?
No. I mean, if you're running in a 5e world, yes, it wouldn't hurt to have them. But no, you can run Empire of the Ghouls with just that book because it's got all. Hold on. This is
all right, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, look, it's a tome, but everything you need is in here. Let's see. Random encounters on the Shadow Road. There's a chart. You could just roll on there, and then if you're like, say, you're running Black Iron and you wanted to convert it to that, but there's your a dungeon. Floor plan. Everything you need is in this book. You don't have to necessarily have the Midgard setting. Now, it's gonna make references to things that you're not gonna maybe necessarily know, but I mean, they give you the breakdown. Here's the hierarchy of the Ghoul Empire. Right? I mean, that's, what more do you need, right? Because you can come up, you as a game master can come up with any background information you need for that. You've got the basis right there. What more do you need to add? And then here's all the different gods that they give you. So I mean, it's really well done. You don't necessarily have to have anything else. This, you could get by with just this. But I hate to say this, and I don't hate to say it because I have all of the Midgard books because they're that good. Because Midgard compressed the Egyptian world, the Norse world with the 5e Patreon or Pantheon. So, and in those books, they don't talk about the 5e gods because they're already covered in the core books. But
Right.
you don't have to use any of the 5e books if you don't want to. You get that world book for Midgard, you get the player's book for Midgard. You got everything you need to run. If you already know the 5e rules, like because you GM. I know it. I can. In fact, I did run Midgard. I started my Pathfinder game was Midgard and 5e, and then second edition playtest came out, and I read it and I was blown away. I was like, this is everything I want out of D&D, but better. Because I like the 3-action economy. I like the way armor works. I like the way your shield degrades. They still have armor class, and like you said, that's kind of broken. That's just a holdover from the archaic system. But the fact that you get a shield and your shield has, hit points, and once you're out, that shield's toast. You either have to go get it repaired or get a new shield, but you don't have an armor bonus anymore for that shield. So
Right.
I like that, So I agree with you on that. So, yeah, if you haven't looked at Midgard and you like the 5e rule mechanics and you want to play in that playground, I highly, highly recommend Midgard. And if you were looking for a good adventure, like an AP, like what Paizo does, this is phenomenal. It's really well done. And they did this as a Kickstarter, and I believe it was produced on time.
Yeah, I mean,
It's in the stores now. You can buy it off of Amazon, or you can go to Kobo.
Yeah. I've seen it on online and stuff, in web stores and stuff, and I've thought about it a few times, but
Well,
I don't know. I'm kind of reluctant to buy anything sort of 5th edition, really, because I don't know when I'm going to run it.
yeah, and that's the thing. If you're not, I'm saying if you I'm going to run. I like Norse mythology, and I like Egyptian mythology, and you slam the two together. It's peanut butter and chocolate, two great tastes that go great together. If that's your jam and you want to run in a fifth edition environment, I think you can't go wrong. It's a great setting. The Midgard setting is totally worth it to me, and I would do the work to convert it to Pathfinder. My group has been having fun with all the APs, so why do extra work that I don't have time to do anyway? So, if that's the case, I'm just going to run 5th edition, and then I would run Midgard. And they're ready. They really liked my group. I got 5 players. They enjoyed Midgard, and they're like, we'll jump back in a heartbeat if you say the word. And I'm like, I don't like the 5e set. I don't like the rules, but I love the world. The world is magical. It's a really great time. They have a beer cleric. and of course, it's a dwarven pantheon, of course.
It's always out of print over here, so I never get the chance. Every time I look for it, it's always out of print or it's not available or something. So I do keep looking. And if I ever see it again, I'll probably grab a copy of it.
Yeah.
Because it does look really interesting, and I wouldn't mind having a look at it. But I tend not to buy a lot, as I said, a lot of 5th edition stuff. If I buy fantasy stuff, I tend to, especially if it's D20 stuff, I tend to buy either Dungeon Crawl Classics or 2nd edition. I tend to buy a lot of older games. I don't know. I think Simbrum is probably my fantasy game of choice, I guess, if I was to play somebody else's games.
Right.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, isn't it? But
no, I
mean,
Simbaroom is a really good game.
Yeah, it's very lore heavy though. I think that's where
you got to put your time in as a GM to read, because I kind of skipped through a lot of it, thinking I could just wing it, because I've been doing this for 30 years, and I had 2 players that were knee deep in the lore, and they were asking questions and I couldn't answer them. I was bullshitting my way, and they were calling me out on it, and rightly so, and I thought, wow, I'm doing this game a disservice because my players have put this much energy into it. I should as well. Because I can run the mechanics, because the players do all the dice rolls. GM doesn't have to roll dice for anything, but you gotta know the lore for sure.
I don't have a lot of time or energy to do that sort of thing anymore, really. I mean, especially when you're writing it all day long.
Right.
You don't want to be reading it all night long, because you get kind of exhausted from it, and a bit, you get kind of like, I've been sat in front of the screen all day and writing role-playing game rules, and one thing I don't want to do is now sit down and read role-playing game rules. I just want to relax.
Yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of time on my Xbox to get away from, because like I said, I got to read a lot for reviews and stuff, and then I've got so much stuff backlog right now. I mean, I got a stack of cult books right here that I've kind of only cracked the cover on. I got the PDF of the core rules. I bought myself some more time because, like I said, they forgot to send me the core rules, but they just gave me the PDF. So I'm like, well, I loaded it on my iPad, and I'm like, but I'm finding it, like I said, I started reading them today, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is powered by the apocalypse. But nowhere does it say it's powered by the apocalypse that I could find.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does mention it at the.
Oh, I'm sure it mentions it somewhere, but like in the beginning and everything, I'm like, I'm not seeing a lot of mechanics here. So, and then I started reading the character creation, and I saw the +2 +1 +1 -1 0, and I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds like POC or POBC, and I'm like, what's going on? And so then I looked at the character sheet, and I was like, this, I think the character sheet's amazing. I love it. It's their cult cross, which is a play on a Roman Catholic cross. Say again?
I can't remember actually ever seeing a character sheet.
Yeah,
I don't think I never made a character, so
yeah.
I read. As soon as I saw it was powered by the apocalypse, I kind of lost interest a little.
Well, yeah, sure. If that's not your cup of tea, I totally get it. But I think for this is in the league with like original vampires and werewolves. It's a very dark game that's touching on subjects that not everybody's comfortable playing in that sandbox. And you should never, in my personal opinion, you shouldn't force anybody to, But it is a very dark game that deals with personal horror and, body horror and, concepts that a lot of people are not comfortable with. But, and the first question I asked is, do I have to send these books back? And they're like, no, these are for you. Well, we just want your honest opinion of them. And I was like, okay, So, obviously when I do the video, I'm going to put a disclaimer up there that, this is not a game to play with your 13-year-old kid. This is a game for adults who are comfortable in their being. And, because there's some of the Book of Adventures, Screams and Whispers is literally a book of adventures. It's a beautiful cover, and the art is phenomenal. But you got Screams and Whispers is meant for an adult audience. You need the cult Divinity Lost to play Screams and Whispers. So they're telling you right there, it's made for adults. But it's one of the adventures is called "It Started and Ended with Screams." Yeah, you kind of you don't need much more than that to go. This is probably not going to be a politically correct adventure. Hell is Other People. That's another adventure. Yeah, so
it's a true fact as well.
Yeah, well, and I love the synopsis. 3 people ride in a limousine through a dark and nameless city. The close claustrophobic ride reveals more, perhaps too much, about their hidden secrets, their desperate desires, and the envy they hold for each other. Not everybody's going to be comfortable with that. So, but it's a beautiful book, man.
I think you said that. Was it Mark Twain or was it Voltaire who said that? Hell was Other People.
I think that was the Voltaire. I mean,
Hell was Other People is a quote by someone.
This is not a kid-friendly game. I'm not going to leave this laying on the coffee table for, when my diehard Baptist, parents come over. I'm like, oh, look at this cool coffee table book, But the art in here is phenomenal. I mean, it is gorgeous, and it's very dark. And, yeah.
It was getting very dark.
Yeah, it was. Is it getting nighttime there?
Yeah, it's 8:30 at night. Yeah.
8 p.m.
8:30.
Oh wow, yeah, it's almost 2:30 here. So, well, Jay, I think we've kind of covered it, my brother.
Yeah, it's been a good chat.
I want to see if the other meanies know of any other publisher or designer that's going outside of the 5e lane like you are using 5e mechanics, because I haven't heard of anybody. I mean, I can't think of...
I think there's a few games that have used 5e. There's that Carbon 21 that used, I can't remember what it's called now, Carbon 2156.
21, yeah.
Yeah,
I kickstarted that and I was sorely disappointed in it.
There's an awful lot of space in it. They didn't really. I mean, the amount of money they made, you'd have thought they'd have bought more.
Now I'll tell you who. Okay, well I'll tell you who did a good job with the 5e, Esper Genesis.
I've never seen that.
You should do yourself a favor and get it.
When I told you to stop when I tried to get it.
Because there's no dwarves, there's no elves. It's 5e mechanics, but it's 180 degrees from anything D&D. But everything you need to make a character is in the book. So
that's good.
Yeah. So there's no rogue, there's no There's no fighter. There's no, cleric. It's,
That's good.
they've got different character classes, different bonuses. Everything the script has been flipped, and it's really well done. But, the problem is, for me, I tried to run it for my current group, and I ran it when it first came out on Fantasy Grounds. And it was fine. We enjoyed it. Everybody loved the game. Everyone thought it was fun. But I tried to run it a few months ago, and it was painful. It just didn't flow for me. It just didn't. The mechanics have to synergize with the story. And don't get me wrong, it's a great system. I have the 2 core books, and I have the PDF. I'm waiting on the physical book, and I will buy it because I think it's just a wealth of information that's really well done. And I think it's Rich Lescofleur is the designer. Super nice guy. He saw my review because I called him out on his review. I was like, you take this long to produce a book on a Kickstarter. People are waiting 3 going on 4 years now. That's unacceptable. But yet you're producing all these other games, and adventures where you're paying writers to create stuff. Why aren't these books out? Because the Kickstarter was basically for the 3 core books, which was going to be basically the DM's guide, the player's guide, and a bestiary. And for right now we only have the core book, which is kind of the GM/player's book, and the bestiary. We don't have the 3rd book, which is like the gear book, and it's a sci-fi game, so you want gear, right? Everybody wants their hand scanner, their phaser, their whatever. So. But it's a good game. Don't get me wrong. I just couldn't run it. It didn't jive for me. But Carbon 2185, Carbon was a supreme letdown because it was supposed to be that kind of sci-fi cyberpunk.
Sorry, my cats are fighting.
Well, let them fight. And the strong one is the one you eat for dinner. Don't you know that? Jay, I keep telling you this stuff, man. You're supposed to know this. Yeah, so definitely check out Esper Genesis.
We'll have a look. Yeah,
get the PDF at least, if nothing else. That doesn't take up anything but a little hard drive space. And there's a primer on DriveThruRPG that you can download for free.
We'll look at it. Yeah, as I said, there's been a few times I wanted to look at it.
Get them. And this is why I don't have cats.
Sorry, it's been a little.
Cats are being a shit.
The evening meal in half an hour, so they're all kind of roaming around now, thinking, "Oh well, it must be close to dinner time."
When's this asshole gonna feed me?
Exactly, basically.
When they start nibbling on your toes.
I think 5th edition is a very viable system, and I think as long as you use it right and you adapt it enough and make it workable, I think it works because there's a lot of 5th edition players who like 5th edition, but sometimes get a bit fatigued from playing the same fantasy games or whatever. And because WotC aren't bringing out a lot of stuff for their settings, I mean, bringing out a setting book for Eberron is great, but some people don't have the time to sit there and write adventures for it and, all that sort of stuff, and they want that stuff as well, And so I think people get a little bit fatigued from it. And I think if you can release stuff that's a little bit different, a little bit, unique to 5th edition, for those people who like the rule set, who know the rules very well, then that's great. Because they'll play it. And, Ghost Ops 5th edition is going really well. Faroon sold very well. Black Iron for 5th edition sold pretty well. They've all sold well, and there've not been any bad comments about it or people pointing at me going, "Oh, this is crap," or "That doesn't work," and there's none of that going on. Do you know what I mean? So obviously it works. Yeah. And I think, if you like 5th edition and you want something a little bit different, then give them a go. I mean, even League of Seekers is a little bit different. You can play vampires in League of Seekers. You can't do that in D&D and stuff. And so it's worth checking out these things sometimes because it is a solid system. It does work. Yeah. And
what boggles my mind, to go back to what we touched on earlier, but you just brought it up again. Eberron, they have all those. They have all those adventures for Eberron, and they've cut out the monster stats and put in the 5e stats and re-release it as 5th edition. Why? I mean, even if you only release it as a PDF, that's better than nothing, and you would give people adventures to run. Or do they think? I wonder if the school of thought is, they don't want to reskin it for 5th edition and try to sell it. Do they think that's like being lazy, or I don't know. I'm just hypothesizing, but I'm just like, why would you not give people the option? If people don't want to buy it, they don't have to buy it.
I remember, and this is quite this. I remember when Fallout 4 came out, right, from Bethesda, and a lot of people said, "Oh, it came out broken and it didn't work, and there was problems with it and stuff." And a lot of the problems were fixed by modders, for people who modded it, right?
Yeah.
And it was almost like Bethesda knew that if they released a broken game or a game that didn't quite work right, the modders would come in and fix it all.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have to, right? So they kind of relied upon the modders to, and the modders did, and the modders improved it. They made it a better game, really, by modding it. And I wonder sometimes if this is what they're doing, is they're basically releasing a settings book, and hoping that other people will just release adventures for it.
Yeah, but they're so Hitler, to use a term.
Yeah. It's a weird thing. You'd think you've got a really great setting.
Yeah, if you don't include that OGL in there and put their little 5e logo on it, man, they'll shut you down in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So that can't be the logic. Oh well, they're going to come and mod it and write adventures for us. We don't have to do that. So how does that concept work? Yeah, I don't get where they're coming from.
They can make money. They can make loads of money.
That's what I'm saying. Why would you not? People are gobbling up everything they put out to sell. Why would you not? Is it too much effort to sell adventures, or maybe they think the monetary value is not worth the work that goes into it?
It's a weird thing, though, isn't it? Because you think when you release something, you've got enough money to release a campaign setting that people like, even if it's Ravenloft, which people like.
Yeah.
Why not release more stuff?
Yeah, and I find it hard to believe that there can't be money involved because Paizo is way smaller than WotC. If you look at the financials, they're not even a third of the size of WotC, and their APs sell like hotcakes.
Yeah.
So people want adventures because, like you said, we're busy, we're tired, we don't have some people don't have they're great game masters, but they don't have that imagination to just pull an adventure out of their ass. So they want something written so they can, but
it just baffles me that they keep on producing things for Magic the Gathering settings and that setting and that setting, but never anything else after that. It's almost like they throw it out there. Okay, that's done. What's the next thing we can throw out? Throw another thing.
You'll figure it out. If you want to run this game, you'll figure it out. We're not going to hold your hand. You're a big boy.
That's weird, isn't it? That's weird. It's a weird concept, isn't it? It's a weird.
Whereas Paizo gives you everything you need.
Yeah.
And more than you could want. I don't know. All right, well, we've beat this horse to death, I think. My wife and my kid are waking up from their nap. So
D&D ran over.
D&D ranted the Fireside. Oh, I got to put up a little JPEG of a fire burning. I'm not because I'm lazy and I'm not going to do that. But
in a green screen, you could have done it behind you, so you have a fireplace.
See that creates work, Jay, and that shit ain't going to happen.
What we could do next time is have two screens next to each other, and we'll both sit on big armchairs and face each other.
There you go. There you go.
And we're talking to each other,
and we'll just put a little GIF of a fire in between us, right here on the, in the middle of the screen, and we can each have our smoking jacket and a pipe. Yeah, there you go. There you go. You shall refer to me as Lord Tolkien. All right, Jay. As always, awesome. I'm glad you're doing well. I'm glad the cats haven't killed each other. But just remember, when you get tired of one, send it over to the U.S. I'll make a fine roast out of it. Tell Nikki I said that so she can hate me more. I know she loves me because I'm your friend. Much love and success for Space Gits and Dungeon Gits. I can't wait to see Dungeon Gits. And of course, anything with Black Iron, I'm your fan, number one fan. I can't wait to see what happens with that. I'm very excited about the percentile system. Although I love the D6 system, so I hate to say it, I might stick with the D6 system. I want the percentile system just because I'm greedy, but I might stick with the D6 system because my players seem to like it as well. And you've got the Foundry mechanics on it, so. Are you gonna commission Dab or somebody to possibly work on a percentage based version?
Not right now, no. I mean, that'll come.
Well, I'm saying once the book is out and in the wild.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. I mean, I've chatted with Dab about getting things like ghost ops and stuff on Foundry and things. So there are a few things I want to, work with them on because I think it'd be quite cool. I mean, I will be sending out. There's going to be a playtest of the percentile system, just as a percentile system. So you probably get that sent to you.
That'll be awesome.
Tester.
Yeah,
and you can test it out and see how it works and stuff. Because there's a few things, and then once it's fixed, once it works and it seems good, then I'll shove it into the black iron and
stuff it. Yeah, I'll be sure to trash it and tear it all apart and tell you how bad it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want. But so once we'll do an alpha build of it and send it out to a few people and you can play it and stuff. And then once that we do a beta and then do it again, and then I'll put it up for free on drive-through and see how people respond to it.
Yeah.
If it works well, then it may be a system that I'll use quite a lot. Because I'm not a fan of a lot of percentile systems because I find them a little bit draggy.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what's with Cthulhu because there's not a lot of fighting in Cthulhu, but with things like RuneQuest and Warhammer, where you've got constantly people kind of right, I'm going to attack him, okay, I'm going to parry it, and then it becomes a little bit kind of bit of a slog, and I kind of want to change all that and get rid of it because it's something that I don't like. I want to make it faster. So yeah, we'll see how that works out.
I like it. I like where your head is at, and I'm looking forward to seeing the playtest or whatever comes of it. So everybody watching, thank you so much for hanging out with this fireside chat with me and Jay. Jay, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me. It's getting late there, so feed your cats before they eat you, and then I don't get any more games. So. As always, everybody, thank you so much. Check out Jay. Hey, is your website up and running?
It is, yeah. Got a website, yeah.
What is it?
Hold on.
Put it in the show. Put it in the Discord so I can include it in the video. Because I went to your WordPress site and it hadn't been updated in a while.
I've got a new one now.
Okay. Yeah, make sure we have that so people can get to it. And of course, all your product is available on DriveThruRPG. So everybody can use my affiliate code, so I get a little chunk. I can make some money off of Jay's blood, sweat, and tears. I like it. I'm pimping, always pimping. But in case you don't know, and this is your first encounter with Jay, is Jay Lasarde from FeralGamesInc. He makes awesome games. Go check them out. You should buy one of each, I think. Do yourself a favor and buy one of each. Physical. Don't get this PDF shit. Buy the physical book. And then that way you can have a nice collection of really cool games. And then you can come on Mr. Mean Speaks on my Discord and we can talk about it. So, Jay, as always, my friend, thank you so much. Much love to you and the wife. None to the cats. I hate the cats. And we will chat again as soon as Dungeon hits the public, for sure.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing a review of Space Kids.
Oh yeah, it's coming soon. I'm losing fast my interest to paint today because my butt is hurting. So I may just actually work on the review of Space Kids because I'm really liking the art. But anyway, I don't want to keep this going. Peace, love, and happiness, my brother. Thank you so much. Everyone out there, all the meanies, thank you for the thumb. Remember, thumbs if you loved it, subs if you, whatever. You know the fucking thing. I'm tired. I'm getting giddy now. We're going to fade to black here. Peace, love, and happiness. And remember, as always, Mr. Mean says be nice.